working with you to get a solution. We know that over many years, so many Tamils have suffered injustice and want to have answers, and those answers have not been forthcoming. So together with you and working closely with you, we want to have solutions to this problem, working with the international organisations, the United Nations, the International Criminal Court, and all other international experts. And I can see you have a speaker coming up from who is also a human rights expert. Together we can get justice, and together we will get justice. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Sorry, we have to vote. Unfortunately, we've got 7 votes today, but my name is Paul Butler. I'm a Member of Parliament for Brent Central. And I was involved with those people who were on hunger strike, making sure that the government was listening to the plight of the Tamil community, both at home and in Sri Lanka. I visited people, we had protests outside of Parliament, and we got commitment from the government because of your hard work, but we still haven't got justice. And so justice denied is something that none of us can stand for. So I am so pleased that the Labour Party are committed. And we have to, and I just need to let you all know that we hear you, your voices, your campaigning, your struggle, the pain, we hear you. And we will not rest until you get justice, because we have international laws for a reason. And so we are with you in this battle and this fight. We are with you every step of the way. We are behind you, we are beside you, and we are with you. So thank you very much, and we will never, ever forget. Thank you.
So I think I'm sure that most of the speakers here are so what I'll do, I'll get the thumbs up to Sri Lanka. He's a community worker and a businessman, currently serves as deputy mayor for Mulberry Park. And he's the president of the Tamil Sangam, now getting to say a few seconds.
Thank you, Secretary. I'm sorry I put another meeting previously committed. I was going to participate today. I told him I just participate. Now next meeting. Thanks for Sharon and Robert being here to support us. Today we gather to reflect on the profoundly somber chapter in human history. We believe the event at Oliver represents not just a American confrontation. It's tragic. It's a deep humanitarian crisis. Civilians are trapped in the crossfire, faces severe conditions, loss of life, and violation of human rights on a massive scale. This cause, led by these events, are stop remain of the cause of conflict and the urgent need for investigation. As we are here, remember those who lost our families and friends in our own soil, place in Univerca. Let us commit to seeking justice and bring those perpetrators to our country. It is crucial for the international community to work together towards ensuring that such a tragedies are never repeated. Let this remembrance serve as action for peace, human rights, and dignity for all, regardless of nationality, ethnicity, religion. Thank you.
Yeah, so doing the speech and getting us started. As you know, we have several speakers today, and I want to get through as many as possible people. And I don't have a particular order because, as you know, MPs come and speak, they may have to go to whatever. So I'm not going to do that too long. So I'm just wondering, so our next speaker they are going to be Councillor Tautere Yaranjan. He is former mayor of Refuge Council and a dedicated community worker. Professionally, he has worked as an engineer on railway projects, including Jubilee Line and Crossrail. So we'll hear from him.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I don't believe he has spoken. I'm delighted and indeed honored to have been invited to speak at this evening's meeting. This meeting on an issue of due and long ongoing concern for the British and Sri Lankan Tamils. We have been talking about this issue for a long time over the years. Many leading Labour Party leaders, Prime Minister Gordon Brown and Foreign Secretary David Miliband in 2009, and some others took up the issue with the Sri Lankan government. But given that resolution of such complex issues is always very difficult, no real progress has been made. Our fear is that if no resolution is sought and no solution emerges to the satisfaction of the Tamil population of Sri Lanka, the dreadful history of the recent past may come to repeat itself. In a few minutes I have been given to speak, I will try to sum up the issues briefly. I am sure other speakers will also fill up on that thought. I am sure you all have a good idea of the issue as it is a recent history. Essentially, the root cause is the ethnic conflict between the majority Buddhist population and minority Tamil population who have been at the receiving end of discrimination in every field. When the Tamils rose up against this treatment, they were crushed, leading to mass killings which came to be described as genocide. Rightly so, given number of Tamil people killed and a very large number forced to seek safety in other countries such as India and many Western countries such as the UK. We and some Labour Party leaders and leaders of other British parties and some other international leaders have underlined the need to seek justice for the Tamils through whatever means possible, including the International Court of Justice, the UNO, and putting pressure on the Sri Lankan government. As I said, it's not going to be easy and there is no quick solution, but we must try to continue to seek justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Ranjan, for coming here and addressing our audience. And it so happened, Ranjan also from Ilford North, we have the Ilford North MP as well as the Shadow Secretary of State for Health and Social Care, desperately, and has a long time trial ever since he got elected. Even before that, he was the champion of our cause. And I don't think I need to introduce more. Elena's desperately.
Well, it's a real pleasure for me to follow Councillor Jayarajan because it was thanks to serving on the London Borough of Redbridge Council together that I first learned about the Sri Lankan Civil War, the appalling events, atrocities, human rights abuses, and brutalities that took place during that civil war, and the extent to and right across the country bear the scars, still the literal scars and the physical scars, but also the mental scars of those appalling events. And that spurred me to learn more and to commit to do whatever I could if I was elected to this place to make sure that we see the truth, the justice and the accountability that the Tamil people deserve. The Civil War was described by David Miliband as a war without witness when he was our country's foreign secretary, and with humility he and other leaders at the time reflected on the failures of this country and so many other countries around the world to act and prevent the atrocities that have left unbearable and unimaginable suffering on families that now suffer the loss and absence of family, friends and loved ones, in some cases with the cloud of uncertainty hanging over them because there have never been answers as to exactly what happened to particularly this year. And this week, of course, we take part in the remembrance of the 15th anniversary of Mulai, one of the darkest days, if not the darkest days, of the Sri Lankan Civil War. One of my frustrations, reflecting back on the last 9 years that I've been here in Parliament, is that it felt like for a time we were making such progress, particularly in the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva, where I've been on delegations with MPs from the Labour Party, the Conservative Party and other parties, to keep the issue on the agenda of the international community, to make sure that your voices were heard, not just on the floor of the House of Commons, but on the floor of the United Nations in Geneva, and to make sure that there was that drive and that determination to ensure that truth, justice and accountability. And it really felt like we were making progress. We even at one point got the government of Sri Lanka to vote for and support UN Human Rights Council resolutions committing to that process. But we know that over time, the politics and the government of Sri Lanka have changed for the worse, and with other foreign policy debates here in Parliament, from Brexit right through to the war in Ukraine and now the war in Gaza, it's been hard to keep Sri Lanka on the agenda here in Parliament and here in the UK, let alone on the agenda of the internet. And that's why your coming here this evening is so important, because it both galvanises all of us, gives us the opportunity to come together, and got my friend Gareth Thomas here, who's been a long-standing parliamentary champion for the Tamil community. Other parliamentary colleagues will be coming to join you. It's really important that we do come together like this, because it's to the government today and to potentially a different government after the general election, that there is enormous support for your cause here in Parliament, and a strong determination on the part of us to make sure that this doesn't slip off the agenda, and we will keep it on the agenda. And it's also really important to send that message to the government of Sri Lanka too, that however much they have tried to backslide from the commitments they made in the eyes of all of the international community, we won't let them forget. And similarly, we are not blind to the ongoing human rights abuses that continue in Sri Lanka to this day. And I know that you'll be hearing from other Labour representatives. I'm here very much in my capacity as the Labour MP for Norfolk North priorities should there be a Labour government after the next general election. And for as long as we are in opposition, we will do whatever we can to press this government to use its voice in Geneva and at the UN and through our bilateral relationships to make progress. The final thing I just want to say is that the UN Human Rights Commissioner, successive UN Human Rights Commissioners actually, have documented very well both the abuses, the human rights abuses and atrocities that have taken place, ongoing human rights abuses, and they have also identified culprits. And it is so important, if international law and human rights are to mean anything, it is really important that individuals are held to account through the International Criminal Court and that those referrals are made. Because this is about justice for you and so many other families who've suffered. It is also about the international community sending a strong deterrent to make sure that would-be human rights abusers and would-be butchers know that they will not get away with these sorts of human rights abuses without punishment or consequence. So we mustn't lose heart. We've got to continue to work and strive hard to keep this issue on the agenda here in Parliament and to keep it on the agenda of the international community. And all of the work that you have done, all of those MP surgeries you've attended on Friday or Saturday, all the gatherings you've attended here, all the gatherings you've attended in Westminster and Whitehall and Trafalgar Square, they are all making an impact. They are all making sure your voices are heard. And we will make sure, working together, that we continue to strive and ultimately achieve the justice and accountability that you deserve. So thank you for coming and thank you for making sure rights in Sri Lanka and justice for the Tamil people does not fall off the agenda in the way that sadly it did when it was needed most.
Thank you, Brett. I think, as I said before, time to time you may have to go to voting and come back again. Yes. Between the time schedule, thanks for coming and making the speech. As I said, the front bench team, including yourself, committed to what the British Tamils and Tamils in Sri Lanka and all over the world. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone.
I think what will happen is as soon as they vote, we will get another batch of entries coming. Until that time, I think we should get certain things going, but I'm also keen. We have representatives from NGOs, but I like to put them to speak when we have our guests from the Labour front bench here, so I hope you will be able to stay until that time to deliver the speeches. It's all going to be short, so please don't worry too much. As I said, because we couldn't control properly the attendance, we have to end up taking people into room 12, and that will be also full, but we, I think, managed to broadcast there to show them what's going on here. So again, thank you very much for coming. So until that time, I think I will give a few minutes pause. I think literally they will vote and come here and we can start. That's okay.
Yes.
Evening again. So we got Virendra Sharma MP for South and UP. By the way, Virendra is no interaction. I think ever since he got elected, even before that, as a councillor, a good friend of ours. And also say he worked hard to make sure he got elected in the first time. If you remember that, because we had the Tory crowd to bring in some wealthy people in to smash him, but it didn't happen actually. One probably. Since that time, he's a good friend. I've asked Graham to say.
Thank you, Sam. And my apologies for coming late, as I'm sure that many other parliamentarians have said the same. We were in the camera, there were votes taking place. This is the event which comes in the calendar of Parliament at once. Recognize that there's something happened in Sri Lanka which was wrong, should not have happened, but we still fight. We come every year. We go to the different places to fight, to raising the issue, so that coming generation is not forgotten. This is the most important. We will carry on fighting, but we want the young generations to remember that. What happened to their ancestors? What have they suffered? And why we should fight it. I have the, if I use it as the greatest honor to work with the town community. And Sam said, long before I became member of Parliament, in member of Ealing, as a local councillor, we worked from a different point of view. Maybe setting up the religious group, setting up the temple, prayers, bringing the people together, then discussing issues. As the first generation Indian myself, coming from India, that is the way we gather. Temple, come together, but not forgetting the main issues. We are fighting for equality. We are fighting for something what went wrong. And we are challenging, and I have great honor at, when the president came to this country a few years ago at the BBC outside. Still, when I was speaking there. Then coming to the Congress office and finally raising the issue. So we are there to fight along with the community. I don't believe that we are leading it. We are all leading. We're working together. And we will carry on working together until we have the justice, we have the recognition, we have the proper authority, and then the
better commitment than I personally do. We will be definitely raising those issues. But I promise you again, as you every year do, we are with you, we are fighting together, we are fighting for justice and peace. And we will carry on doing that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Virendra. I think we welcome Annalise here as well as James. I understand James needs to shoot off very quick. So can I first ask James Murray, he is the Shadow Secretary for Treasury, and I'll ask James to speak first from Ealing, and I'm sure there are people from Ealing here. It so happened that there's so many people wanted to come here to hire room number 12, and that room also happy thing we were able to see that. So can I ask James to say a few words?
Thank you very much for inviting me this evening. I'm James Murray. I'm the MP for Ealing North, which is a home to many people who are members of the Tamil community, and I'm very proud to be their MP. Since I've been elected, since I was first elected in 2019, members of the Tamil community have welcomed me, supported me, introduced me to the history and culture of Tamil people, but also crucially made sure I know why today is such an important day, why Remembrance Day is so important, and why the quest for justice is so important to the Tamil people. This year, as we know, marks 15 years since the injustices committed against Tamil people at Mumbai, where tens of thousands of Tamils were subjected to heavy shelling, extrajudicial killings, and sexual violence by Sri Lanka's armed forces. And what happened during the armed conflict in Sri Lanka, I know, caused unimaginable pain and suffering for the Tamil community, and I can feel that when I talk to people who live within my constituency about how they feel about what happened and how important it is for them to get that justice that they seek. I want to join my colleagues in saying that we in the Labour Party mourn with you what happened at Mumbai, and we know how important it is to all of you here tonight, in the next room, in our constituencies across the country to get justice. Now, I was very concerned also this year to hear reports of the Sri Lankan government clamping down on commemoration events taking place in the northeast this year, including 4 Tamils who I understand were arrested in Trincomalee for simply distributing kanji as a form of remembrance. The Tamil people have the right to remember. They must be allowed to mark Mumbai in Sri Lanka, and of course, as we are tonight here in London. And I want to reaffirm personally, as the MP for Ealing North, and I know saying some words that can be echoed by many of my colleagues in the Labour Party, that the Labour Party stands with you in your fight to secure justice, truth and reconciliation for the Tamil victims who lost their lives 15 years ago, and as well for all the survivors who are still with us today. Now, in terms of what really needs to happen and what we have our full support for, the ability must ensure there is a properly resourced and effective accountability mechanism. We believe the UK government must continue to push for accountability for those who have been accused of human rights abuses in Sri Lanka, including current serving Sri Lankan government ministers. We urge the British government to consider the recommendations of the UN High Commission for Human Rights to refer perpetrators of these crimes to the International Criminal Court. A very important commitment that I know means so much to so many in the Tamil community. And we believe it is vital that ministers here in the UK government activate impunity sanctions against those complicit in past killings. Whilst I know that nothing that we can say tonight, or we can push the government to do, or we can even do in government if we won the next election, will bring back those that we lost. I'm here tonight to say once again, as I do every year as the MP for Ealing North, that we mourn with you, we join you in that quest for justice, and we are by your side as you do so. Thank you very much.
Rennie. She is the head of Freedom from Torture and leads the organizations work to hold torturing states and those that support them to attack. So I think it's more appropriate for you to make your comments.
Freedom from Torture is a UK charity. We provide support to survivors of torture who have fled to the UK to seek safety and rebuild their lives. We have centres across England and Scotland where our clinicians provide therapy to help survivors rehabilitate, and our doctors forensically document evidence of torture for use in survivors' asylum claims. We also have lawyers and welfare advisors who support survivors in navigating the UK's complex and increasingly challenging asylum system. And we work closely with Survivors Who Count, a network of UK-based torture survivors, to fight for the rights of torture survivors in the UK, and also to challenge the UK government to uphold its obligations under the absolute prohibition of torture. For many years, we have worked very closely with Sri Lankan survivors of torture. We are deeply sorry for the terrible loss of life at Mumbai and the immense suffering as part of the right conflict. It is utterly unacceptable that 15 years on, justice and accountability remain elusive and the torture in Sri Lanka continues. Freedom from Torture has a long history of documenting torture in Sri Lanka, both by the state and the LTT. We have worked with hundreds of Sri Lankan clients over the years who are seeking refuge from appalling abuses. In fact, from 2009 to now, Sri Lanka has more often than not been the top country of origin for clients referred to our services. The majority of our clients are of Tamil ethnicity. Of course, we also welcome Sinhalese survivors of torture. It is deeply shameful that unprecedented political attacks in recent years on refugee protection in this country make the safety that Sri Lankan survivors are so desperately seeking uncertain. The inhumanity which survivors have faced at the hands of their torturers risks being compounded by the current scapegoating and demonisation of refugees in the UK. Recent legislation curbs access to the asylum system and seeks to send survivors to Rwanda, where they would face an uncertain and unsafe future. Our therapists are acutely aware of the deep anxiety that the Rwanda scheme has caused our clients, amongst other deplorable initiatives. We are also deeply concerned about Sri Lankans held for an indefinite period on Diego Garcia in atrocious conditions. This includes children. No one, including vulnerable torture survivors, who need rehabilitation should be forced to endure this. As a campaigning organisation, our work is survivor-led, and we know that Sri Lankan torture survivors see a direct link between continued human rights violations and successive failures for justice and accountability. Sri Lankan survivors tell us they want justice. Justice is integral to recovery, and lack of redress for victims, their families, and wider communities has a direct impact on the healing process. Any credible efforts to achieve justice must be survivor-centred and include meaningful consultation with survivors and families of victims. Accountability means different things for different people, but it is clear that 15 years since the end of the war, under changing governments, efforts to secure justice and accountability have failed. Lack of prosecutions for the atrocities carried out in Mumbai has been a source of enormous pain for our Tamil clients over the years. This failure contributes to ongoing abuses, including torture, as an entrenched part of the state apparatus in Sri Lanka that has endured under successive political leaders. The culture of impunity must be meaningfully challenged. Until this happens, we will continue to see the devastating impacts in our therapy rooms every day. The UK has a significant influence to wield and should raise concerns about human rights violations in any engagement with the government of Sri Lanka and support ongoing scrutiny of violations towards accountability. Bilaterally, the UK can support accountability in a number of ways. For instance, the government can use the global human rights sanctions regime to designate individuals credibly accused of mass atrocity crimes. Or future aid, trade, diplomatic and military relations must be informed by human rights concerns. Parliamentarians also have a role to play. They can highlight the contradiction between Sri Lanka's status as a UK government human rights priority country and continuing engagement with the security forces. They can ask the government to cancel all engagement with the security forces until there is genuine commitment to accountability and reform. It was very heartening to see Police Scotland cancel its 15-year-long training of the Sri Lanka Police in 2021, but the resident defence advisor remains in Colombo. The work of the FCDO's flagship Preventing Sexual Violence in Conflict initiative must continue and can be a means of learning the lessons that we work out. Finally, Sri Lankan survivors in the UK, like all torture survivors, must be treated with fairness and compassion. They must be supported to recover and to live their lives without fear in the UK. This means restoring access to the asylum system and scrapping the land plan and the Illegal Migration Act. Thank you.
Thank you, Lottie. As I said, when I also wanted mainly from the INGOs to their views. So our next speaker is Natalie Kubik. She's a legal officer at Redress, an international human rights organization that would pursue victims of torture to obtain justice and reparation. Natalie focuses on asset recovery and repurposing of assets frozen under advocacy sanctions for the purpose of human rights reparations. Prior to this, Natalie practiced at two large international law firms in London, working on complex financial crime investigation and litigation, and advised on compliance with international sanction treaties. Can I ask Natalie to speak next?
Yes, of course. I'm standing here in the same space, but well, thank you first of all for having me here. This is a very impressive event. My name is Natalia, and I'm a legal. Well, yeah, my name is Natalia, and I work at London-based anti-torture NGO Redress. In my role at Redress, I really had the privilege to work with some wonderful NGOs and survivor communities, putting together dossiers of evidence on human rights violations that have been committed in Sri Lanka and advocating for the imposition of targeted sanctions on those responsible for the abuses. Now, in my remarks today, I will draw on this experience to firstly outline how many of the violations that have been committed in Sri Lanka qualify as sanctionable activities under the UK's global human rights sanction regulations. And secondly, I will advance several arguments why the government should take action now. To state it up front, since the creation of the UK's global human rights sanction regulations in 2020, the UK government has not yet used it to impose sanctions on persons responsible for human rights violations in Sri Lanka. And this is despite the fact that UK's partners, including the US and Canada, have already taken similar actions in response to those responsible for war crimes that have been committed during Sri Lanka's brutal civil war. Now, this to start, for those who are not aware, or just by way of background, UK's global human rights sanction regulations allow for the imposition of asset freezes and travel bans against individuals and entities involved in certain serious human rights violations. These include the right to life, the right to be free from torture and inhumane treatment, and the right to be free from forced labor and slavery. A person is considered involved in these violations and thereby become target for sanctions, not only if they committed the violations, but also if they've overseen it, facilitated, promoted, or otherwise benefited from it. This means it's a tool to target a broad range of perpetrators involved in the violations. Finally, under the regulations, the government must also consider a number of policy considerations. This includes the UK's stated human rights priorities, whether domestic routes for accountability are available, as well as whether the UK's partners have taken comparable actions. Now, applying this criteria to Sri Lanka, it becomes very clear that many government individuals involved, for example, in the targeting and the use of minority groups, such as the Tamil minority, would qualify for sanction under the UK's regime. This is in part exemplified by Sri Lanka's Prevention of Terrorism Act, which has allowed for the weaponization of freedom of speech and the targeting and abuse of those critical of the regime. The FCDO has, and the UK's Foreign Office has in part acknowledged this when it classified Sri Lanka as one of its 32 human rights priority countries. year's July 2023, it raised concerns about the marginalization of minority communities by state authorities in Sri Lanka, in particular the treatment of the Tamil minority, as well as security responses against peaceful protesters who often include intimidation and violence. In addition, as has been pointed out many times, Sri Lanka suffers from a continuing accountability deficit. There has been no accountability whatsoever for the war crimes that have been committed during the bloody civil war that Sri Lanka had to suffer from. Further, as I mentioned before, the US and Canada have already imposed sanctions on certain individuals for their involvement in war crimes. This includes Sri Lankan military chief Chalama Silva, as well as the former president Rajapaksa. Now, given that all the criteria are met under the regulations, the question is, why have no sanctions been imposed? The government arguments that may have been made refer to what the government considers a special diplomatic and economic relationship with Sri Lanka. However, I submit that this argumentation does not stand up to scrutiny for the following reasons. Firstly, magnitude of third human rights sanctions are a unique tool in the foreign policy toolkit that makes specific calls for accountability in respect of particularly grave cases. They also give the government flexibility to select specific individuals responsible for the abuses without implicating the entire country in question. An initial set of sanctions focused on a discrete set of perpetrators who have attracted particular concern can begin a broader advocacy effort to see whether Sri Lankan authorities will respond to international pressures and hold abusive actors to account. Secondly, it is in the UK's interest to adopt a consistent approach towards sanctioning human rights perpetrators regardless of their geopolitical alignment. Only such a consistent approach, treating friends and friends alike, will allow the UK government to realise sanctions' full potential as a tool for promoting human rights globally. The case of Sri Lanka in particular demonstrates that even what we established democracies face the risk of backsliding into authoritarian instability if they fail to confront commercial abuses and others do not hold them to account. Third, evidence confirms that sanctions are actually most effective where there is a strong economic relationship between the sanctioning state and the sanctioned state. So the UK's relation to Sri Lanka actually means that sanctions could have a real financial bite and giving the UK greater leverage to demand change to Sri Lanka's cultural impunity. Now finally, and probably most importantly, sanctions also provide an important symbolic function for victims of the abuses. The very act of sanctioning is an act by the UK government of expressly recognising the harm that has been suffered and calling out perpetrators for their involvement. By sanctioning, the government conveys a strong sign of disapproval, condones the perpetrators, and demands specific behaviour change. Now, just to conclude, global human rights sanctions are an important tool as available to the UK government now to impose a cost on perpetrators of human rights violations in Sri Lanka. But of course, they're not a panacea. They need to be supported by international litigation, by diplomatic negotiations, as well as by policy advocacy to counter the root problem and address the prevailing accountability vacuum in Sri Lanka.
Thank you, Natalia. We say one of two doctors in UK are times. So we decided to take in two NHS doctors to speak tonight. The first one I want to ask to speak is Dr. Shivani Ravindran. She is an NHS doctor representing people who equality and rape in Lanka. Good
evening, everyone. I am Shivani Ravindran, and I'm here today representing people for equality and rape in Lanka, also known as PAL. PAL is a grassroots organisation that advocates for international justice and self-determination for some people in North and East Lanka. PAL conducts extensive research and works on advocacy to promote and protect the human rights of Tamils. The organisation works in the North East of Sri Lanka, the UK, regularly meets with the US State Department, and works alongside NGOs and the UN HRC. Now, let me take you back to exactly 15 years ago. It would have now been Friday, 15th May 2009, and at this point, the Sri Lankan Army's full-scale attack was well underway, with hundreds of thousands of civilians trapped in a government-declared safe zone, being subjected was Tamils amidst military intimidation in the northeast marked May 18 as Muliwata Tamil Genocide Remembrance Day. An ongoing culture of impunity which has been created by a lack of international action and accountability for war crimes and mass atrocities has only enabled further rights violations and state failure. 15 years on since Muliwata massacre, the traditional Tamil homelands of the northeast remain under heavy military surveillance, and the Tamils who commemorate their loved ones are under immense scrutiny, harassment, threats of assault, and imprisonment. The root cause for Sri Lanka's instability and cycle of violence is the unchecked single-based nationalism that has driven policy for successive governments. This ideology believes that Sri Lanka is not a secular state, and that the Tamil people do not have a hold to their traditional Tamil homeland in the north and east of Sri Lanka. Post-independence from British rule, Sri Lanka saw the escalation of ethnic tensions fueled by unbridled single-based nationalism, resulting in discriminatory laws against Tamils and rendering them as second-class citizens in their own land. This oppressive environment and lack of a political solution that acknowledges the Tamil right to self-determination led to civil unrest, anti-Tamil pogroms, and eventually the 26-year armed ethnic conflict. Despite the end of the armed conflict, oppression against Tamils continues unabated. Families of forcibly disappeared individuals still seek answers about their loved ones' fate, and strategic dismantling of Tamil people persists through mass groundworks of traditional Tamil homelands, similar colonization programs, destruction of Tamil temples, and disruption of farming and fishing by the military, affecting the livelihoods of ordinary Tamil people. UN rights chiefs have said in their report that Sri Lanka risks further violence due to increasing majoritarianism and disenfranchisement of Tamil northeast. In September last year, the UN Human Rights Office published a report that states Sri Lanka still suffers from extraordinary accountability deficit, the war crime atrocities, human rights violations, corruption or abuse of power, whilst a climate of intimidation and torture is used on civil society using draconian counter-terrorism legislation. Despite this intimidation, the Tamil community stands strong, and in the northeast they continue to mobilize in protest, memorialization and activism. In June last year, President Vikram Singh stated that he was committed to the establishment of a truth-seeking mechanism. However, this sort of domestic truth-seeking mechanism has been rejected by victims, civil society and the UN. Sri Lanka's history of failed truth-seeking mechanisms and commissions is proof that only an international accountability framework will act as a deterrent for future crimes. Sri Lanka's current economic crisis is not isolated and a root cause of violence in Sri Lanka. The debt streamlining accepts bailouts from the IMF having been unable to sustain its citizens' standards of living, yet the state continues to prioritize single-based nationalism and funnels its resources into the militarization of Tamil homelands, as well as utilizing funding to support the recent surges in state-sponsored land grabs and destruction of Tamil places of worship. This irrational behavior requires strong, steadfast solutions. Now is the perfect opportunity for the international community to support relevant criminal justice investigations and prosecutions, and it must consider appropriate targeted and tangible sanctions against key players credibly implicated in serious human rights violations. International accountability and pressure towards a political settlement that respects the aspirations of all people on the island are crucial for the future stability of the country. The UK, unfortunately, is far behind its foreign allies on helping direct Sri Lanka to stability, peace and prosperity for all communities. Canadian Parliament has already recognised May 18 as Tamil Genocide Remembrance Day, and as we speak today, the US Congress has tabled a bipartisan motion calling for international accountability and urging the US and international community to work towards a political solution based on the right to self-determination of the Ulan Tamil people. The motion also recognises the genocide against the Ulan Tamil people of Sri Lanka. Please reach out to Carl if you'd like to know more. Meanwhile, over the past 2 years, the US State Department has stated publicly that they will sanction key Sri Lankan military figures that were involved in final stages of the armed conflict. As a government committee, we hope that the Labour Party is able to follow suit and direct British Foreign Office to do the same. A first step is a plan for Magnitsky-style sanctions on Sri Lankan war criminals. We also hope that the party will insist in supporting a bill similar to what is being passed in the US Congress, to be passed by the British Congress. We ask that the Labour Party continues to work closely with the Tamil community in the struggle for an international investigative and justice mechanism, for the genocide committed, demilitarization of their homelands, as well as a political solution in Sri Lanka that addresses the root cause of instability and recognizes the Tamil right to self-determination. These items are key to direct the island of Sri Lanka towards a long-term sustainable solution that allows the Tamil people in the north and east of Sri Lanka to live in peace, prosperity and stability. Thank you.
Thanks, Ronnie. I know that Steve and Gareth and I need to go. So, our next speaker is Annalise Dodds, MP, Shadow Secretary of State for Women and Equalities, Chair of the Labour Party, representing Leader of the Opposition and Leader of the Labour Party, the Right Honourable Sir P.S.
Thank you very much indeed. I know that Stephen, who's just had to leave, he did want to be here also with all of you, and I work closely with him as one of the Labour face envoys, so it's very important for me really to be with you, as was mentioned, as the chair of the Labour Party and also as the Shadow Secretary of State for Women and Equalities. Just as was mentioned before by James Murray, of course, I always want to celebrate the huge contribution of British Tamils to our country, but of course we are gathering today not at a celebratory time, but an extraordinarily sad and upsetting time. We are gathered here to engage in the Malivaika Remembrance Day period and to remember those tens of thousands of Tamils who were killed during the final stages of the Sri Lankan conflict. Obviously, we've heard already during this session about some of what took place, and this morning I was looking back at some of the testimonies of those who were affected by those truly dreadful days. Obviously, the number of people who were killed, but also sexual violence, of course, that was perpetrated at that time, and the scars of that still with so many people, and the impediments on memorialising that period, something that clearly is re-traumatising for people. So I just want to be clear with you that our thoughts as the Labour Party are with the Tamil victims, survivors and their loved ones who continue to live with atrocities that were suffered. We as the Labour Party, I can see that John McDonald's here as well, and Gareth also, that we stand with the Tamil community. And as we pause and reflect on this day, of course remembering the events, but above all remembering every single one of the individuals who were killed, the impact on their families, survivors and loved ones, and of course the impact on children in particular. We repeat the calls that we have made before, that again have been referred to already, calls for the British government to stand shoulder to shoulder with Tamil victims. We believe it's imperative that the Sri Lankan government actually takes active steps to support justice and accountability. It must be a meaningful accountability process, and we also call on them to heed recommendations from the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights to refer the perpetrators of these dreadful crimes to the International Criminal Court. So thank you for having me here today. It's a very solemn occasion, but I wanted to underline that commitment and above all that solidarity with all of you on this very, very momentous and very sad day. Thank you.
So, our next speaker is Gareth Thomas. I know Gareth also needs no introduction. Gareth is Harrow West MP, and he's the Shadow Minister for International Trade when it comes to future trade preferences and so on. I think we don't need to say to Gareth what to do that. I ask Gareth to say.
Welcome. Just if you'll forgive me for the sake of any Labour Party whips that are listening, I'll carry on in English just so that they can check what I've said. It's not against the line. As most of you will be aware, I represent the famous Jaffna suburb of Rains Lane and South Harrow. And it is a genuine pleasure to see many Tamil friends here in the room. But as with others who've spoken, I wish I was seeing you in a happier meeting, because it would be lovely, wouldn't it, to be able to say that we don't need to have such a huge meeting to remember the events of Bully Michael 15 years ago. That actually there has been accountability, that there has been justice, and that there is a process of reconciliation and a path towards genuine self-determination for the Tamil people. And of course we're a long way away from any of those aspirations and ambitions. And it is the responsibility of those of us in this place, in the Labour Party, to continue the fight for justice for the Tamil people. And I come here tonight not only because Sen has bullied me, as I think he probably has the rest of us to come, but also to pay homage to my constituents who have come to surgeries and shown me what they suffered from in terms of torture, how they did logic and meet with the Tamil leadership at the time. But gradually that opportunity was thrown away deliberately. The white bands came back, and it was mainly Tamil people that were in those white bands, as you know. The tsunami came along shortly thereafter, which was the only other time that I felt able to go to Sri Lanka. And unlike in Indonesia, where the tsunami hit, where the government used the tsunami as an opportunity to bring people in Aceh together, to find solutions there to the overriding conflict there. That opportunity wasn't taken by the leadership in Sri Lanka, and the steady march towards what happened in Bully Michael began. So the responsibility does sit on this House of Commons, where we have such a significant Tamil community in our constituencies, to keep the fight up, to keep the pressure on the UN system, to keep the pressure up on the Sri Lankan government for justice. As some of the great representatives from the NGOs, Pearl, Redress Group, and Torture said, it is almost incomprehensible as to why Majinsky sanctions haven't been used against General Shalendra Silva, for example. The US and Canada can do it. Why can't we do it here in the UK? We should be doing that. So I just end by saying I promise that if I am re-elected, I will continue to push the cause of justice for the Tamil people, and I look forward to meeting you in happier times back in Harrow. Andrew.
Our next speaker is going to be Jensia Newton, who will be speaking on behalf of the International Economic Council of Tamil Leaders.
Good evening. I'm honoured to be given the opportunity to deliver a speech before members of the Labour Party, fellow guest speakers and fellow panels here today. Firstly, I would like to thank the Labour Party for standing united with your Tamil community, residing in the UK till this day. You have consistently voiced out your concerns on the matter of the genocide, and in doing so, reassured the Tamils of the UK that changes will be brought about. Today, we commemorate 15 years since the Muliwaikala genocide, a horrific period that underscores Tamils' ongoing struggle for justice and the recognition of Tamil women. We remember the brutal killings, attacks on no-fly zones,
sexual assault, disappearances, and deprivation of medical supplies and food supplies, enforced by the Sri Lankan state in an attempt to carry out an ethnical cleanse, a genocide on our people and land. The Sri Lankan state has claimed to initiate mechanisms for accountability, reconciliation, and human rights, but these promises are mere words without any substance to deter international bodies. On behalf of the Ulam Tamil community, we would like to reiterate that reconciliation is not a solution for our long-standing cries for justice. As a nation, we have lost our loved ones, our rights, and our land to the Sri Lankan state. Lost lives cannot be brought back, but our rights on our land can be rightfully restored by addressing accountability and justice for the Tamil genocide and bringing the perpetrators in front of the judicial body. Currently, our brothers and sisters back home face ongoing state-sponsored civilization, militarization, land confiscations, and the systematic denial of fundamental rights, all being forms of a structural genocide in order to instill a defeatist mentality amongst the Ulam Tamils. Earlier on Monday this week, individuals were arrested for serving kanji as part of their commemorations. Kanji is a meal consisting of water and rice, which was the only source of food supply during the final phases of the war. The chauvinistic Sri Lankan government deemed that a memorial procession in serving kanji may reinstate terrorist activities. Our people are compelled to remain silent in their own homeland in fear of their lives and their livelihoods, but as a diaspora, it is our duty to unmask the facet of Sri Lanka that international bodies are hidden from. The diaspora community have been and will persist in bringing to light the actions of the genocidal state of Sri Lanka. And we only hope the UK government, having a moral duty and responsibility post-colonisation, to not only stand in solidarity with us, but stand for the Tamils' rights, justice and independence at an international level. As we know, the British colonial era sparked the unification of the island of Ceylon, without proper recognition of the distinct Tamil and Sinhalese identities, leading to prolonged grievances and systematic genocide against the Ulam Tamils. The Mundabaikam massacre being one of many results of the coalition. We would like to use this day to remind the governments the atrocities our nation has and continues to face at the hands of a genocidal state. We hope that justice is served. After our elders, we, the Tamil diaspora youth, abide by the Ratification resolution put forward in 1976, our right to self-determination within a sovereign Tamil. We would like our governments to recognize, it is reassuring to see that the Ulam Tamil nation's call for justice is gaining international traction. The US Congress and the Canadian politicians are supporting calls for international investigation into war crimes, crimes against humanity and genocide that have been committed. Therefore, we urge the UK government to join these international efforts. This time last year, Council of Ulam Tamils held a conference where Labour MP for North Brent, Mr. Barry Gardner, stressed that Sri Lanka has lost its ability and right to govern, expressing Labour Party's solidarity with Ulam Tamils. And we only urge you to continue with this support and take this further by bringing about changes for your Ulam Tamil community.
Struggle is going on, even if it is not sorted, the young generation is still ready to fight for. Because one of the tasks for Tamils for Labour is to bring in new leadership to take these things forward. And my next speaker is Keith Tajaya. He just completed a law degree, and recently I know he was involved in a project to talk about Sixth Amendment in Sri Lanka. I tell you, there are so many courts in Sri Lanka, so we can have this sort of conferences for days and days. But however, I just asked Keith to say a few words.
Good evening, everyone. In 2009, the Mundabaikam genocide saw over 146,000 others killed or disappeared. Now, as we commemorate the 15th anniversary of these events, the wounds of our people are yet to heal. I stand before you today on behalf of the World Tamil Coordinating Committee, the WTCC, to address the plight of the Tamil people in Sri Lanka, whose political liberties continue to be restricted by the draconian Sixth Amendment to the Sri Lankan Constitution. The Sixth Amendment was enacted immediately after the Black July genocide in in which over 3,000 innocent Tamils were massacred by Sri Lankan security forces and state-backed students' gangs. The scope of the amendment is significant as it criminalises, whether directly or indirectly, any form of support or funding for a separate state within Sri Lanka. There are also grave repercussions. Tamils who violate the amendment face harsh penalties, such as losing their civil rights and civic disability. Tamils are even prohibited from referring to their homeland as Tamil, even if the name does not necessarily imply the existence of a distinct state. This severely restricts their political expression and aggravates their marginalization in their own homeland. Years after the end of the armed conflict, the amendment still silences the political voice of Tamils while keeping them under constant tyranny. Tamil places of worship are desecrated in the name of archaeological excavation. Tamil judges who dare to challenge these are facing death threats. Drug use and gang violence plague Tamil communities while being encouraged by the Sri Lankan security forces. Recently, as mentioned before, 4 Tamils were remanded by Sri Lankan police for distributing rice porridge in remembrance of the events in Mumbai. Repealing the suppressive Sixth Amendment and decriminalising the Tamil right to self-determination is the only way Tamils in Sri Lanka and abroad can freely express their political aspirations together and safeguard their human rights. The concept of remedial justice has been invoked by many nations that have undergone genocide, and independence has been sought as a remedy. Kosovo remains a key example. However, as long as the Sixth Amendment is in place, Tamils in Sri Lanka are unable to even engage with this idea. Some may say that in pursuit of justice for the genocide, bringing Sri Lanka before the International Criminal Court is adequate. But is it also necessary to prevent future genocide by taking action to guarantee that mechanisms are in place? For this, Tamils must be able to exercise their right to self-determination freely, which can only be achieved by repealing the Sixth Amendment. Therefore, as a law student and a British company, on behalf of the WTCC, I strongly urge the UK government to honour the promises they made to the Tamil people during peace talks and prevail upon the Sri Lankan government to repeal the Sixth Amendment as a step towards true reconciliation and remedial justice.
Thank you, Tika. So you heard from Tika about the Sixth Amendment and the impact on our people back home and forward. So as I mentioned before, we have several young professionals as well as entrepreneurs in the UK. So I want to introduce our next speaker is Dr. Chan Shanmugaratnam. He's an NHS doctor and on the Executive Committee for Tamil Diaspora Alliance. They work as a network and bridge between diaspora and homeland charitable organizations and NGOs to facilitate need-based development across the impoverished Tamil Northeast.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Hello, I'm Dr. Sayan Shanmugaratnam. Nice to meet you. Thank you for having me here today. It's good to see a few familiar faces from previous events, and I look forward to reconnecting at a later point. To those of you that don't know me, I'm one of the co-founders and executives at Tamil Diaspora Alliance. This is an international development organisation, and it ranges currently across 13 countries, spearheaded by a young team of next generation Tamil diaspora, and primarily born and raised in the West, and with the aim of uniting the Tamil people beyond geographical and organisational boundaries. And at the moment, areas of focus include economic development, we're looking at education, healthcare, social issues from narcotics usage, getting rural villages access to birth certificates, among a few other things. So in the last 3 years, because we founded in 2021, we've built quite a lot of expertise and experience, and we've enjoyed really a brilliant success working in conjunction with notable institutions such as the State Department in America, UNICEF, the EU Climate Fund, but also additionally, much of our strength can be attributed to the network of some organisations and NGOs, as well as an increasing pool of subject matter experts that we've accumulated in the homeland and diaspora over the last few years of development work. So part of development work is understanding the underlying reasons preventing regeneration in an area. So 15 years ago, our people experienced a massacre in 146,679 people are unaccounted for and presumed killed on local census records annually. And on this particular day, 15 years ago, Tamil reported between 2,000 and 3,000 bodies littering the remaining lands only declared by the Sri Lankan government. And on this, it was actually on this day that the Sri Lankan president, declared victory and described the operation as a precise and well-coordinated humanitarian operation. On this day 15 years ago, our people faced genocide. The ICRC had abandoned its operations. There's no food, no proper access to drinkable water to tens of thousands of civilians trapped in bunkers, with the UK Secretary of State for International Development, Douglas Alexander, condemned this as a fundamental violation of humanitarian law. A leaked US embassy cable also said that there was no remaining healthcare available to the trapped population, and as I mentioned before, it was against this backdrop that the president then declared victory. That same president would go on to run Sri Lanka with an iron fist, filling government positions with family members, and his brother would then go on to become the president, before being ousted from power after 3 short years from mass protests in 2022 due to corruption, which I'm sure you guys are aware of. Now, international hopes of a more progressive government on the island have been dashed after his ousting, with Tamil civilians, as late as yesterday, as my colleagues and peers have mentioned, being arrested for commemorating the genocide by issuing gun control. This is basically a type of porridge which my colleagues have explained before, so I won't go into detail on it. But that is another flagrant violation of their civil liberties and their rights. So Sri Lanka might be post-war, but it's definitely not post-conflict. We cannot move forward as a people with the current circumstances and systems that we're in. So the crimes that occurred at Halibaikal are very well documented and corroborated by a wide spectrum of international organisations. 15 years on, we at TDA, as a team of young, next generation Tamils, want to do what we can to rebuild a shattered and occupied Tamil nation. At the dawn of independence from colonial rule, the Tamil people were prosperous and well educated with high levels of workforce and civil service participation. Sri Lanka enjoyed one of the highest human development indexes in South Asia and looked set to overtake even Singapore. Over the last 70 years, as a direct result of chauvinistic and self-sabotaging state policies, this has been entirely reversed, and the entire island itself has fallen into economic and political turmoil. With years of experience, we've developed an innate understanding of the issues our people are facing on the ground, while fostering a close relationship with diaspora organisations internationally. And true justice in Sri Lanka lies in a multifaceted response, with further support for rebuilding systematically targeted and impoverished Tamil regions, while listening to the demands of our people on the ground and making strides towards greater autonomy. The right to self-rule and autonomy has long been put to the vote and has secured a democratic mandate from the Tamil people and this is a well-known fact. It's that the UK follow the lead of its close allies, the United States and Canada, in taking clear steps to address the roots of this issue as a former colonial master, and in consideration of the millions of Tamils that continue to add to the social and economic fabric of the UK, US, Canada, Europe, and all the other nations that we've become refugees in. Restoring the health of a vibrant democracy by taking direct steps to resolve the ethnic conflict is in the interest of Britain and as much as it would be in the interest of Great Tamil, Sinhala, and more communities on the island. The last 15 years, the Sri Lankan government has had a chance to hold its armed forces accountable, but this has instead chosen to shield perpetrators of war crimes, and through cronyism and corruption has driven the state on dry, while aligning with increasingly authoritarian states to prop up its failing economy. Its leaders and ambassadors face travel bans and sanctions from multiple Western nations already. At present, Sri Lanka has an external foreign debt of $34 billion, US dollars, in which 45 is to Chinese creditors, and being unable to pay its debts, has already granted a 99-year lease of the strategically vital port of Avatotsa to the Chinese government. Through development work of severely impoverished regions, we aim to restore pre-war living, working, educational and health standards of our people, in part by deepening connections to a highly prosperous and very well-educated diaspora abroad. We stand at the precipice of unprecedented political turmoil, with the force of democracy grappling with authoritarianism. Humanitarian catastrophes are ongoing, ranging from Africa to the Middle East to even borders of a very long peaceful Europe. The support of the UK government in directly improving the lives of those in Sri Lanka, as well as in listening and facilitating the legitimate demands of people on the ground to resolve the ethnic question, is an opportunity to join global leaders in protecting the health of democracies that are at serious risk of degradation, and will be a credit to British institutions and the British government. We look forward to working with you as in conjunction with our global community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. I think even though he's a doctor, he brought in a lot of economic things as well. One of the things we should know as Tamils, the gross domestic income of the Tamils worldwide is more than the gross domestic income of the Sri Lankan government. So eventually we should have much more power than the government itself. Whereas I must say we don't use it. This is a room where we here to commemorate only wildlife. But there are many times we were on Zoom calls with many MPs, cross party, but most of the time with Labour as well. So lots of organizations here today just help all the time. So in a way, I just want to particularly thank the ITDAP for producing all those dossiers to get the sanctions done, and we are very grateful for its continued support and work. Similarly, I want to mention some of the organizations that have worked tirelessly with us to support our cause. I don't have time to mention all of them, but I want to give a special thanks to Freedom from Torture, Sri Lanka Campaign, Redress, and PERD for their representation here today. So I think I must say, as I said, we want to keep this campaign going. So our next speaker is Yuan Schofield. He is the campaign director for the Sri Lanka Campaign for Peace and Justice. The organization's aim is to achieve genuine accountability for systemic human rights violations in Sri Lanka. Well, as we want to say it.
If I could thank Sen and Thomas for Labour for inviting me to speak today. It's also been really amazing to have so many Labour MPs join us. We recognise their tireless work and continued engagement on issues facing towns in the UK and towns in Sri Lanka. We're here today to observe the 15th anniversary of the massacre at Mulliwaiko and the genocide that marks the end of the armed conflict in Sri Lanka. There'll be a multitude of such events, private and public, in the UK and around the world. In every country that Tamils have made their home, this week will be commemorated with reflection, mourning and prayers. However, this is a solemn privilege, the privilege of living in a true democracy. In Sri Lanka itself, there have been arbitrary arrests, as some of my colleagues have alluded to. On Sunday, 3 women and a gentleman were arrested in Trincomalee, detained by the police for serving kanji, as our colleagues mentioned, in remembrance of the starvation victims faced at Mulliwaiko. They appeared before Mutta Magistrate Court, who upheld and ordered a further 14-day detention for certain kanji. This is not an isolated incident. Incidents like this are being reported across the north and east this week at an alarming rate. We cannot ignore this worrying trend of diminishing civic spaces in Sri Lanka. The right to freely express dissent, to assemble peacefully and commemorate significant events is increasingly under threat. Civic freedoms undermines the very foundation of democracy and hampers our collective ability to address grievances, to call for accountability and promote reconciliation. Government overreach has continued to grow under President Ranil Wickremesinghe, despite the early hopes of a system change. Tamils in Sri Lanka continue to face state-sponsored violence and repression as a raft of new laws are introduced. From the proposed anti-terrorism, which on examination is even more draconian than the Prevention of Terrorism Act that it was looking to replace, to the vaguely and broadly worded online safety bill which was introduced in January this year, to the proposed new NGO laws which subject civil society organisations to invasive government scrutiny and interference. What is becoming increasingly evident is that the current random government is as prepared to curtail fundamental civil and political rights as the previous Rajapaksa government. As a colleague from Sri Lanka recently urged, we must see these as bricks, and brick by brick, the Sri Lankan government is building the architecture of repression. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, when there's someone very familiar with the young people, join very many calls, very many efforts. Then again, our next speaker is John McNabb, MP, the ex-Shadow Chancellor. More than that, he has been a friend for many decades. I think John knows more than, for example, me about the Commemoration of the diamond issue. So, can I ask you to say a bit?
Good to see everybody again. It's sad to see everyone again as well. Sense said, some of you are maybe as old as me, whatever, sort of older. I can remember the early problems 20, 30 years ago, but I can specifically remember 15 years ago what happened. A number of my constituents in Hayes lost family members on that day in the massacre. There's a big debate about what's happening in Gaza at the moment. The massacres that's going on of innocent civilians, men, women, children, and the repression that's taking place there. What happened on that day was Gaza, because it was a massacre of people on the beach, no defence, nowhere to go, and it was systematic, it was planned. I even had constituents who went out there afterwards to try and find family members and then were disappeared, never seen again. Many of the older members of the community on that day predicted what would happen, and unfortunately it's proved right. The repressive measures that have been described were introduced in a way which they may have learned lessons from other dictatorships and regimes, they may well have done. But the way in which they systematically introduced the repressive measures. First of all, of course, the physical abuse. And I don't think any of us expected the scale of physical abuse that went on. It's been mentioned, the murders, the maimings, the rapes, all of that. Then after that, the repression, freedom of speech gone. The targeting of journalists in particular. That's what dictatorships do. They don't want the truth to be reported elsewhere. So journalists come on the front line of the target. That's what's happened. Then the legislation. The BTA was bad enough to see the Sixth Amendment. And again, promise after promise was given that there would be reforms and somehow things would change. But actually, yes, they did change, but they got worse. But the next stage in any regime like this, because as you know, this isn't just a dictatorship, this is a military-industrial complex we're talking about here. So the next stage of it was the seizure of land, the displacement of people. In the most of Palestinians, they call the Nakba, the way people have been forced off their land. That's exactly. The Tamils have gone through a Nakba, where they're taking the land and force people out of their traditional homes. And then after that, they have to break down belief. So that's why they attacked religious institutions, religious sites, etc. Because it undermines and demoralizes. Looking back on that, the last 15 years, I shouldn't be startled, but I am, about the extent that this regime has gone through. I think the thing that's made me angry is both the actions that have taken place, but also the fact that for a long period of time, the international community stood on one side as well and and turned a blind eye to some of this. The only reason the international community is taking it seriously in these recent years is because of you. Because the Tamil diaspora right the way across the world has been campaigning, meeting with representatives at every level, councillors, MPs, ministers, to explain what's going on and to demand their support. And so that's why in America and Canada and elsewhere, that's why politicians and governments are waking up to this issue again, and yes, are beginning to take action. We've got a golden opportunity in these next few months to make sure that happens here. We've got a general election, most probably October, November. We've got to put this issue on the general election agenda, constituency after constituency. We've got to start talking to whoever is standing and saying, we expect you to follow the rest of the international community. And again, it isn't rocket science, is it? We've gone through it time and time again. First of all, we want the truth. The Sri Lankan government will never give us the truth, because they know once the truth is identified, many of them will be identified for what they are, war criminals. So we want the truth. So the only way that will be brought about is through the international community, through a proper UN investigation and inquiry, and access to all the material that we have. On that, once we can get movement towards the truth, we can then start taking action. But action, we know some of the truth already, so action could be taken. The sanctions regime is absolutely critical. There's two levels of sanction. One is the individual sanctions. The Magnitsky clause is absolutely critical. We've been campaigning on the Magnitsky clause for over a decade now. And you know the story about Magnitsky. He was the accountant that the Russians killed because he exposed corruption. And the American law people took this up and said this is a way in which we use that clause to target those who profiteered from human rights abuses. It's in law already. We've got it in law in this country. What we should be doing is make sure that that's exercised. But there's other forms of sanctions as well. Trade sanctions is another route through. And what we've got to do is basically say if we don't get the independent inquiry, if we don't get some form of redress, as a country we've got to place trade sanctions on Sri Lanka as well. We should not be trading with war criminals. We should not be trading or financially supporting a regime like this. Then after that, it is a matter of constructing an agenda then about recognition of certain basic principles, upon which, exactly as has been said, we can rebuild the society in a way in which people feel safe and secure, but have some hope as well. And the founding principle has to be democratic freedom, associated with the principle of self-determination. We've got to get that embedded in the thinking of the future government of this country. Very straightforwardly, in these next few months, the responsibility is on all our shoulders now. I think there was certainly, on the opinion polls, it looks as though we'll get a Labour government. So we've got an opportunity now of a government working with us, rather than standing on the sidelines. And I remember actually, David Miliband was the Foreign Secretary who went out there, was the first Foreign Secretary, Foreign Minister to do so, to read the right act to the then government of what was going on. So Labour in government actually has been on our side. Now Labour is coming back into government. We need them as allies working on this agenda. And you can make that difference. It does mean going out into our communities. And those people who might be a bit disillusioned with politics at the moment or whatever, we've got to shake them up and say the most powerful thing you've got now is the vote. And you use that vote to install a government that will work with us on an agreed agenda. Between now and the general election, we want that agenda publicised as well. We want Keir Starmer to make statements saying these are the actions that we will follow when we go to government. That will send a message, not just to the Sri Lankan government, it will send a message right way across Europe, right way across the States and Canada and elsewhere, to say we're serious and we're coming to an international partnership to resolve this problem, resolve this issue. It's got to be based upon the will of the Tamil people themselves. Therefore, I think we've got a job to do. So let's get to it in these coming months. Let's get a government that will work with us on an agenda which we believe will secure freedom of self-determination. And exactly as has been said, Tamil community, members of the Tamil community have gone through nightmare situation in these recent years, but they're so resilient. You know this as well as I do. They're so resilient. We have the next generation of people with the talents and skills to rebuild the country. It's got to be based upon those fundamental principles of freedom and self-determination. I'll do what I can, as I have done over the years, in solidarity with the Tamil people, because your cause is just, and it's one that we will succeed on, I promise you that.
Thank you, John. I think I want to touch on one of the points you mentioned there. Because the Sri Lankan military thought they successfully oppressed the Tamil people, they are actually selling those techniques to other regions in the region. So talking about sanctions, I think clearly as Tamils for Labour and Chair for Tamils for Labour, the last Foreign Secretary who addressed the gathering of Tamils was David Miliband. He worked in a cross-party level in UK to get at least some of the sanctions done. I have visited several times to the Foreign Commonwealth Development Office and director. Then he literally told them as well, they put a Chinese wall between the ministers and the civil service. Actually, the foreign policy in Sri Lanka is run by civil service, not by politicians. The problem is, if you are a weak politician, you always let the civil servant to act. So you need courageous people like David Miliband to be back in the fold. So I must also say, I think I'm allowed to say, even though we don't talk openly, we have been talking with the front bench team, whether it was David Corbyn's time or now, that we are here, particularly I'm not a politician, I'm more of a campaigner, but I know using common sense, the only party who can help people like us is the Labour Party. Therefore, I'm spending all my time working with the Labour Party. So what I have got from the Labour Party is three important things. Within the election of the Labour government, within 100 days, they will bring in the Magnitsky sanctions. Again, this is not a party campaigning, but I thought this is a day we got together without that much of hope. Even I too don't have hope. But that is the reason I'm also blunt with our own politicians. I'm just telling them how people are fed up. Someone like me, when there was a big armed struggle, trying to convince at least the diaspora that politics will work. And I must say, politics will work when we were campaigning in Westminster Square. David Miliband invited the young people, boys and girls, into the Foreign Office, and he met them in the state room of the Foreign Office and said, we usually meet the head of states in this room, but I brought you in because I want to give some confidence to you. We are trying our best, but it didn't work. But still, we continue the political struggle, it will work. So I mentioned, number one, they will bring in the sanction, there is no question. They, including Keir Starmer, on video, committed that they will work with the other countries to refer Sri Lanka to ICC. So I don't think they are going to do that. Then we talked about self-determination. And they said, yes, it is a process. We have to work with countries like India, America, and Europe. We will work with you. One of the things I'm requesting, like I said, last 14 years we couldn't meet a foreign secretary. After almost 13 and a half years, they offered to meet the Minister for South Asia. I refused to go because, there is no point in meeting someone without any power or guts. Therefore, we are waiting for David Lammy to come in. I already told him after David Miliband, hoping the first name same to be David, exactly like David Miliband, and we'll be okay. I did tell him that, and he accepted, yes, he will do that. Therefore, on this self-determination thing, we will work along, and the Tamil community also got to get together. We talked about the economic power, even in UK and other parts of the world, that's what By the way, Labour Party also will appoint a special envoy to deal with our issue, because he has foreign secretary and minister for South Asia and so on. They will deal with so many other things. So we have a dedicated person appointed who will work 100% on it. So, like I said, medium term, long term, we have to make sure our young generation will get hope. And again, you know, I written a speech, I couldn't do it, but I just want to remember as well, particularly when everyone here, I watch the Tamil television every day at 8 o'clock, because that is the place where you really see the pictures and so on. One of the people I want to mention is, there are several mothers, fathers, siblings, friends, relatives, campaigning for very many days. To be exact, I think they have been, today is 2,640th day. They have the flags of America, EU, Britain, and all these countries believing we are going to do something. Why they believe it? Because I must say that's what I was sickness, you know, we are working and so on. So in a way, I just want to remember them, because they are struggling every day. Actually, our people in diaspora sometimes don't turn up for your protest in front of the airport outside number 10, fearing we can't go back. If we go, they will stop us at the airport. Sort of thing. Whereas the courageous people over there, in front of the army and police, they are protesting. I think whatever we can help them, I think we should do it. They have a big gap. And again, I did write here, and analysts here, I want to tell her that the problem is indirectly you're funding the Sri Lankan operation. Because take IMF, we are the shareholders, we are contributing, they are going and bailing them out. So the James Murray we talked about, he did say once he becomes the Treasury Secretary, he will look into that, because he will be the person in charge of dealing with IMF. Therefore, we, over the 14 years, even though we will have that kind of traction with the Tory government, we work internally, what the right content, what the trust as well. You know, we are not, we are not going here and there with the trust as well. Hopefully, we will get it done. I think I must also say the local politics or the politics over in Sri Lanka, that sort of places, people over there can't understand, particularly the civil servants as well. You can imagine when they go, they are well received, put them in a 5-star hotel, take them around. You know. So I'm not hiding. There is going to be a visit in July, August. They invited the Labour shadow cabinet as well. So we have been advising them. We do the last thing we want is them getting out the statement that is all over here. So they understand that. So we have a handle on this. So I just want everyone to go home today with the hope, by continuing to work politically. Obviously, I would say work with Labour Party, but I am someone from Kingston and Surbiton, where Labour comes far third. So Davey is a good friend like John, working with us all the time. So you know, we have been very supportive, and he is very supportive. So I'm sure we are intelligent people as well and work together this out. But I must stress the Tory government there last 14 years, nothing really good. People sometimes talk about David Cameron going and visiting Jaffna, but just after Prime Ministership, the first thing he did was promoting the free trade zone in Sri Lanka with Chinese government. So you can see it's not in their blood, therefore there is no point in doing that. So I think what I can say is, again, this is a time for me to thank particularly our friends coming over, and sadly we got same number of people in the next room. And next time maybe we have to, hopefully like John said, we will have a Labour government and things will have been different. I hope we will really push this very good. But this is the time from Towns for Labour to thank you for coming, particularly for all the INGO representatives here, and their ways will go on. But thanks very much, and I apologize again for some of the arrangements we couldn't really manage. But at least for the politicians, they will see we have not gone away. We are still there to fight, and we will fight on. And thank you for coming.
யார்கிட்ட ஃபோன் ஆட்ட ஃபோன் இல்லையா ஆட்ட ஃபோன் போமா இன்னே நம்ம John. சொற்களுக்கு ஜோலிக்கு வெளியே போகிற ஃபோன் பண்ணுவாங்க நல்லப்படாது தேசியம் வெளியே வச்சதான் போட்டு
குரூப்போட நீங்கள் பிடிக்க வராங்க சொல்லுவானுங்க வெளியே நீங்கள் வெளியே நில்லுங்க அவங்க எல்லாம் நான் நிற்ப செய்வானுங்க நீங்கள் வெளியே நீங்கள் பிடிச்சிடுவாங்க